Trump considers 45-day Iran ceasefire after issuing Tuesday ultimatum. That's crazy, man. The art of the deal. Hey, if you haven't opened up the Strait by 8 p.m. ET tomorrow, we're gonna you up. But also, would you like to stop? You want to stop?
CNN has now learned that countries working to end the war with Iran are calling for a 45-day ceasefire. A White House official says the president has not signed off on the proposal, but Iran has already rejected it. It comes as the president threatens to escalate the conflict big time, demanding that Iran reopen the vital Strait of Hormuz by tomorrow evening. He tells Axios that if that deadline expires, and I'm quoting the president now, I am blowing up every, end quote.
Do you know how seriously the president is considering this ceasefire proposal?
Well, look, what we know as of now is that he is considering it. It's unclear, though, how serious he is actually taking it. As you mentioned, a White House official told us that he has not signed off on this proposal yet, and that it's just one of many ideas under consideration. But what I can tell you is that obviously we are now only 36 or so hours now away from that new deadline that the president had set for Iran to either reopen the Strait.
It's got to be exhausting to be the kind of NPR listener who follows these dates but doesn't really engage with the broader critiques of capital. So you wake up every morning and you're like, oh, maybe this time something's going to happen. It's been 10 years of Trump lying and everything happening and nothing happening and everything breaking, but in slow motion, but also faster than you could imagine. Oh, tomorrow's the deadline. No, the day after is the deadline. No, a month after is the deadline. Actually, while you weren't looking, the American economy lost $3 trillion.
Strait of Hormuz or face a serious and much more aggressive escalation in U.S. attacks, particularly, the president said, on energy infrastructure sites, civilian infrastructure sites. So we'll have to see. I think this proposal, and I should note this proposal was drafted by U.S. intermediaries in this war, countries like Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt, which have been passing messages between Washington and Tehran. They are the ones who had drafted this proposal. They delivered it to both countries last night. And so now we just are trying to get a sense of whether or not this is actually something that we could see happen. The idea, of course, behind it is they're hoping that a 45-day ceasefire could be enough time for both sides to really have much more substantial negotiations that could...
Both sides don't want to stop? Oh, to be clear, okay, Americans in government who are not explicitly loyal to Israel want this to stop. They want this to stop very, very badly. We still haven't fully reconciled with the oil shock over here in America. It is hitting Africa, Asia, and starting now to hit Europe. It will hit us soon. Gas prices are already risen more than they ever have, basically, in history in such a quick fashion. What's happening right now is just unprecedented. We are in for a hell of a time. Iran does not want to stop, nor should they.
Potentially provide an end to the war. But again, we don't really know if this is something that could actually move forward. But of course, the hope is that such an agreement could stave off what the United States and really what the president is issuing with those threats of escalation. I will say the Iranians, for their part, have said that they reject this idea of a temporary ceasefire. They said essentially in so many words that they want any sort of deal to be an end to the war. Unclear if that's something that could actually be thought about. I think certainly not within the short deadline we're now facing at 8 p.m. tomorrow. All to say, the president's press conference will hopefully shed a little bit more light on this, as well as also...
This is what I mean about, the media being able to acknowledge Trump's incompetence, but not his insanity. They're still talking about this deadline and this deal as though they're real things. Iran already rejected it, and Trump says lots of stuff that never happens. The media can't engage with it on that level, though. They can't engage with the obvious fact that all of this, it's not even kayfabe. It's it's unreality. It's just a superficial dusting on top of the real political meat and bones of the situation, which in large part is being directed not by us, but by Israel, the actual people who got us involved in this war, and by Iran, the only group with the ability to end the war, which they don't currently want to do. But they're not engaging with it on that level. It's like a sports game to them. Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of how it would be like if you paid some sports commentators to watch a game between two teams, neither of which knew the rules, at all. They were just like fucking around, but the sports commentators have to treat it like it's a real serious game, you know? Like a bunch of toddlers playing soccer or something. You know, they just do whatever, but the people over there at, you know, the microphone, they still have to like pretend that it's an engaging game. And every time a toddler kicks a ball like randomly, they have to be like, oh, I wonder what he meant by that play. Like they have to engage with it like it's a real, you know what I mean?
Give us a little bit more sense around the timing, of course, because that's been a huge, you know, question this entire time. The president has shifted deadlines regarding how long he expects this to last. His most recent one was saying 2 to 3 weeks before he thought the war could be wrapped up. We'll see if that's still the case when he addresses reporters at 1 p.m. today, Pamela.
I love that shirt of me.
Right,
Thank
and
you.
I'm just wondering, you know, we've seen the president in this war make threats and not follow through on them. Are you getting a sense from your sources how serious he is about this threat of going after civilian infrastructure in Iran if it doesn't open up the Strait of Hormuz by
He already has been, so I don't know.
tomorrow night?
Yeah, look, I've been talking to a lot of people in that building behind me, as well as throughout the administration, on this idea. I will say part of the reason we've seen that deadline shift previously, I mean, it initially gave one deadline. He pushed it 10 days. He's now pushed it again by another day, is because the Trump administration recognized to escalate in such a way, and of course some of the things the president has threatened to attack could potentially amount to war crimes if he went through on, say, attacking desalinization plants in Iran. But there's also, of course, Iran has threatened to reciprocate and retaliate should the United States actually move forward with attacks of that magnitude. And that is something, of course, many United States allies and partners in the Middle East, in the Gulf region, are very much concerned about. Iran saying that they would go after similar civilian infrastructure should the United States follow through on that message from the president. And so there is some hesitancy there.
What if we cared about war crimes? Yeah, it's that plays into it as well. Like the media talks as though America and Israel haven't been committing war crimes nonstop for the past couple of years. You know what I mean? Like the way the way with regards to Israel, the media breathlessly covers new reports of potential war crime activities, as if like we all haven't been watching this happening moment after moment, day after day for years now. You know, they act like it. Yeah, I don't know. They do treat it like a sports game where they have to take it seriously no matter what. They are invested in maintaining the perceived legitimacy of politics. They don't want people coming around to the fact that not only are politicians evil, they're fine with you believing that, but they have no idea what they're doing, and they're not the ones that are in charge. They have like basically it's a rudderless ship. Because if you acknowledge that the politicians aren't really the ones who are in charge, you have to get into like material analysis. Well, what is in charge? It's not like the wealthiest people are in charge directly, right? It's not like the Forbes top 500 are actually the ones secretly directing U.S. policy. In reality, it really is a rudderless ship. It's just that the currents are directed by capital.
And I do think there are many people in this White House who do want to see diplomacy prevail here and do want to see this staved off. The question, of course, though, is whether or not that's something that the president is.
You can imagine that, though, right? If you had a bunch of people on the ship, you wouldn't want the passengers on that ship to believe the ship was rudderless. You certainly wouldn't want them to believe the captain couldn't control the direction of the ship. You wouldn't want to explain to them, oh, no, it's just the formless currents that give us movement, you know? People would freak the fuck out. It's one of the reasons why conspiracy theories are often very comforting to people. You would think it would be discomforting to believe that reptile people control the world via chemtrails, but it's actually more disconcerting for a lot of people to imagine that no one's in charge, and it's actually just a complicated set of material forces acting in concurrence with each other, you know? They want to believe the world is actually secretly controlled by, like, a cabal of bad guys. Maybe there are cabals out there, there are conspiracies, but they're just, you know, power players in the current. You know what I mean? They don't really control the current. They're just kind of like, they're dominant forces within that current. And that's a critical difference.
To do if he's willing to push this deadline even further or try to come to an agreement before we face 8 p.m. tomorrow night.
All right, Elena Treen from the White House Force, thanks so much. Wolf.
I want to go to our own Jeremy Diamond right now. He's reporting from Tel Aviv, Israel. Jeremy, as Tehran rejects the idea of a temporary ceasefire, it's also responding to President Trump's threats to Iran's infrastructure. There's a lot going on right now. I know you're covering all of these developments, including the Israeli, apparently Israeli move to kill the director, the head of the Revolutionary Guard Corps' intelligence
Choke
chief.
it out, man. Come on.
First of all, tell us about that. Have the Israelis confirmed that they went ahead and assassinated the head of the Revolutionary Guard Corps' chief of intelligence?
Yeah, that's right, Wolf. The Israeli military has confirmed that Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps' intelligence chief was killed in an Israeli strike. He is just the latest of a slew of senior Iranian officials and senior IRGC officials who have been killed in Israeli strikes. Just a few days ago, of course, it was Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps naval commander who had been killed. We've seen a slew of other senior Iranian officials. All of this began, of course, the first day of the war with the killing of the former supreme leader. But now we are waiting to see what more Israel and the United States are prepared to do in Iran. Today, we already saw that Israel is increasingly already going after infrastructure targets inside of Iran, targeting a petrochemical facility today, one that produces about 50% of Iran's petrochemicals altogether. And Israel's defense minister has warned that Israel will continue and carry out more strikes on Iranian infrastructure targets should Iran continue to target residential areas here in Israel, as we have seen them do over the course of this war.
Oh, yeah? That's what you've seen? You've seen Iran target residential areas? I'm sorry, can we get a live feed cut to Tehran or Beirut, perhaps? Phenomenal.
Including last night when 4 Israeli civilians were killed in a residential building in Haifa that was hit by an Iranian ballistic missile. But the United States
All right, well, go find their ghosts and in purgatory and ask them how they feel about Israeli strikes on Lebanon and Iran, and I'll tell you how I feel about that.
also now
What's that World War II quote? The Israelis had the rather childish notion that they would be bombing everyone else and nobody would be bombing them.
to join into the fray and strike those infrastructure targets. So that is the threat of President Trump, with the deadline for tomorrow at 8 p.m. All of this as we are seeing that there is this last-ditch ceasefire proposal on the table to try and avert those strikes, to agree to a temporary 45-day ceasefire. But for now, the Iranians do not seem amenable to that proposal at all. They very much want to see this conflict end with a permanent ceasefire, one that avoids a scenario where in a few months' time you have Israel and the United States both going back into Iran to carry out additional strikes. The Iranians are showing that they are willing to bear the brunt of the ferocity of the Israeli and American strikes in that country and use their asymmetric warfare assets instead to draw this out into a war of attrition, and seeing if President Trump will blink.
And very quickly, Jeremy, in addition to that strike that the Iranians launched against that residential building in Haifa, Israel, I take it the sirens have been going off for much of today.
Very concerned with Israeli civilian casualties. Just remarkable, man. There's a whole world out there you never even get to experience until you break through the shell of American media programming. It sounds weird and conspiratorial to say. It's just like, it's also factually true. The coverage of our, and especially Israel's, involvement in the Middle East has just been psychotic, and history will remember it as comparable to our coverage during, I wouldn't even say during Vietnam. I actually think that the coverage of what's been going on with Israel and with and Gaza in particular is much more comparable to Nazi Germany. In Vietnam, I think there was a greater sort of chauvinism, but at least that was our war. The blind eye we turned to what Israel was doing, the ideological commitment to genocide, not just ignorance, right? Commitment. Like every American media person and politician basically shook hands and they were like, well, we know the game. You know, we know what we can and can't do. We're all fine with this. And they just let it ride. Israel kills American journalists. Who cares? Let it ride. You know, it doesn't matter. Wolf Blitzer used to work for the Jerusalem Post. Is that true? Man, it's crazy how much of this there is. Washington correspondent for the Jerusalem Post from 1973 to 1990. Jesus. Wolf Blitzer also used to work for AIPAC. Yep, that's cool. Edited 2 magazines run by AIPAC founder. Yeah, that's cool. Million-year reign of groypers. It reaches the point of absurdity. It is insane. It is absolutely insane. Yeah, 100% it is.
Central Israel and the Tel Aviv area where you are.
Yeah, that's right. Well, both overnight and this afternoon, we had multiple areas.
ICC judges cannot open bank accounts right now because of UN sanctions. Or US sanctions, sorry. We never sanctioned the ICC during Vietnam. Yeah, Germany and America have been preventing ICC judges or other people involved in the investigation of Israel. They have been sanctioning them. They can't even access money. There's one particular case of a person who's investigated Israeli war crimes who, without having done anything wrong, had his bank accounts and assets frozen by Germany, in addition to his wife's, even though his wife isn't even working on anything related to Israel, because their argument was we have to sanction the whole family. So, like, these people are just being starved out merely for investigating Israel. It was a French judge. Yeah. Like, we've literally, like, abandoned international liberalism for Israel. We're killing ourselves for Israel. We're like committing civilizational suicide for Israel. The whole point of the post-World War II international liberal order, as much of a, illusion as it always was, but we have killed even the illusion. We've sacrificed it. We're killing our own people, our own ideals, our own values, all of it for Israel. It's insane. It is civilizational suicide. And like the American people in particular are going to have to choose. What do you want? The future of society or Israel? What do you want for the country and the world, the ideology that we value, for your children, for the lives of everyone you've ever known to persist? Or do you want Israel to be able to do infinite war before eventually, inevitably annihilating itself and its neighbors in a massive nuclear holocaust? You choose, Western man. I don't know what you want me to say. The Democrats, they ask you this question in earnest. Which would you prefer? Remember, one of these answers makes you an anti-Semite.
Sirens going off one after the other, in fact, which is relatively unusual, indicating that Iran was firing several waves of ballistic missiles in quick succession. Many of those missiles were armed with those cluster munitions. We could hear several impacts happening, within seconds, milliseconds of each other, indicating small cluster munitions impacts, which have happened here. Multiple injuries as a result, but no fatalities as a result of those cluster munitions today.
I've seen every proposal you can imagine. More proposals.
Your final deadline is Tuesday at 8 p.m. Your final deadline.
If Iran does not meet your demands, Mr. President, are you willing to continue the war?
Well, you'll have to watch. It's an easy question. The answer is yes, but you'll have to watch.
What do you think of the latest proposal?
They've made a proposal, and it's a significant proposal. It's a significant step. It's not good enough, but it's a very significant step. They have made, they're negotiating now, and they've made a very significant step. We'll see what happens.
Have you spoken to Keir Starmer, also? Do you believe the UK should resurrect like Jesus this Easter weekend?
Well, that's what they need. They have a long way to go. The UK...
15% of Texas Democrats would sit out of an election if their elected representative or candidate was as pro-Israel as the Republicans. It's only going to get worse with time, man. The more aware the average Democrat becomes of how captured the party is by Israeli interests, the more polarized people are going to be. Keep in mind that the position of third way, which has a lot of clout within the Democratic Party, if not within the people themselves, is that they would rather Democrats lose than become anti-Zionist.
It's a long way to go. We don't want another Neville Chamberlain. Do we agree? We don't want Neville Chamberlain.
Stop clicking the fucking drumsticks.
How is the airman that was rescued doing?
He's doing really well. They're both doing well. It was two, and we held off the one because if they would have known we had him, so we held off the one. They are both recovering very well. They were both injured, and they're doing well. What else?
You said that Iran had no anti-aircraft equipment. How are they able to drop those?
Well, you know what? When you do thousands and thousands of flights and you have one plane shot down and not mortally, the two pilots got out, they got a little bit lucky. And you know what? In war, you need a little bit of luck also. They got a little bit lucky. That's all they got.
Ending the war. What's stopping you from ending the war?
Well, it could end very quickly, the war, if they do what they have to do. They have to do certain things. They know.
Germany makes U-turn on intervention in Gaza genocide case before the ICJ. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so they're no longer freezing the accounts of those people, that poor husband and wife. That's very nice to hear. Okay. Germany is just as captured by the state of Israel as America is. You all understand what I mean when I say that, of course, that it's not actually being captured by the state, but actually a coalition of capital interests that overlap. I hope I don't have to keep repeating that. I just want to make sure.
That they've been negotiating, I think, in good faith. We've had total regime change. You know, the people there now are much more reasonable than the lunatics that you had in phase 1 and phase 2. They were lunatics. The people that we're negotiating with now on behalf of Iran are much more reasonable. You can call it what you want, but I call it regime change, and I think most people are giving us credit for that. The first regime was taken out. The second regime was taken out. Now the third group of people that we did.
All right. It's just a clip of him. Semaphore article on the Dems meeting in New Orleans next week on the Israel issue. The Israel issue. I don't know if it's going to lead to anything. Of the 32 resolutions approved for debate in New Orleans, 3 edge into foreign policy, including the AIPAC resolution, one that calls for pausing or conditioning weapons transfers to units, credibly implication. Jesus Christ. Pausing or conditioning weapon transfers to units. Not even to countries. That's how captured they are. Okay, maybe like we shouldn't specifically give it to like the fucking, what's it, the Lahid unit? What's the unit called? The one that's they've got the crazy Orthodox Jews, the volunteer unit? Nizak Yehuda? That one? Didn't it get disbanded? I think one of them did, not the whole thing. There's more than the one. One that calls for full, transparent, and independent investigation on the airstrike of the Shahera Tayyebe girls' school in Iran. Okay. Yeah. Typical Dem 4,321. Yeah. You guys see that? What are they called? Too raw, too real? I saw his chorus paid position on the Hassan Piker discourse, which was pretty good, which was something else, you know? He misspelled Hassan Piker in the fucking post.
I think the problem that y'all are missing in the conversation about platforming Hassan Piker in the Democratic Party is what's the motherfucking benefit? You get absolutely nothing because he's going to move the goalposts every goddamn time. He brings nothing of substance to the party, and there's always motherfucking grievance. Even when Democrats meet the motherfucking moment, he still refuses to acknowledge it. The key part of criticism is I need to acknowledge the things that you've done wrong, but I also need to acknowledge the things that you've done right to see you grow. He refuses to acknowledge the wins. Democrats have won consistently across the board, regardless of us being the minority party. And
I fucking hate libs. It's worth noting that centrist Democrats with a lot of money but very little support behind him have done the same thing with this guy as they have with all of Israel, which is they take a marginalized community and they make them a shield, a generally Democrat voting marginalized community. So they do this with black people, they do this with gay people, and they do this with Jews by and large, which is they front incredibly unpopular right-wing positions, but they pay the shield to advocate for them, you know?
Refuses to acknowledge that fact. We have flipped 30 fucking seats across the damn nation. We have consistently won in Trump-led districts. And what has he said about it? Nothing. All he's ever said is Democrats are losers. Democrats have no backbone.
I think he's probably talked about some of the special elections. I mean, I don't watch Hassan's stream. I'd be surprised if he didn't talk about any of those. I hate this guy so much. Well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He literally misspelled Hassan's name in the like he's just saying. It's just funny that like all of the centrist Dems got the same, you know, they got the same like bulletin board, you know? Yeah, they're just following orders.
Democrats are not the party that's fighting for the fucking people, but however, every time Democrats have pushed back against this administration, we have made inroads regardless of us not having fucking power. Republicans control everything, but yet he has more smoke for the Democratic minority than the fucking
Jesus Christ.
Felon in chief in office. So my question is,
that dang
what the
Dorito.
fuck is the benefit? If I'm going on a platform to talk to somebody, my job is to change people's heart. This motherfucker can't be changed because he's a nepo ass motherfucking baby who's benefiting off the.
Did he invite you to talk? I don't think he invited you to talk. You're like a nobody. You're just funny because you're like paid opposition.